So we're here today to talk about an NDP motion that really addresses the key issue of where is the bar of dignity in the country that we all belong to. And what we're seeing across this country is more and more people are falling below it. And Madam Speaker, you may ask, what do I mean by bar of dignity? And to me, it means that you have the ability to look after yourself, to have a roof over your head, to be able to feed yourself, to be able to afford the medication that you need, to be able to just access those basic things that we all deserve to be a part of because we are all Canadians, because we live in a wealthy country that should be looking after all of the people who live in it. And right now we're in yet another government, another federal government that passes hands between the Liberals and the Conservatives that continue to take away that bar of dignity and lower it and lower it and lower it. So we've heard from some of our Liberal friends here today that there are some great economic outcomes. There's more jobs, there's more opportunity. But when you talk to everyday people who are living through the experience that they're having right now, what you're seeing very clearly is that a lot of those folks are working 3 or 4 of those jobs, trying to make ends meet. We're talking about families who don't get to spend time together as a family because both working parents are having to juggle all of those factors. And I really think we need to look at this in the key of what we're seeing people and where their needs are. And I can't help but touch on housing. In my riding of North Island, Powell River, we have seen a huge increase in the cost of living. And that is largely based around a housing market that has exploded. Parts of my riding, some of the most rural and remote communities, have seen the cost of housing go up between 60 to 80%, Madam Speaker. That means that people who are living within those communities can't afford to purchase within their own community. It's also had a huge impact on people who were renting homes. With the market exploding this way, what we're seeing is a lot of people who own houses that they usually rent out are selling because they are making a lot of money to do so, which means more and more people are unhoused. You know, Madam Speaker, just the other day we had a gentleman walk into our office and my staff were quick to tell me when I was back. It was a gentleman who lives on disability. He's been living in his apartment for many, many years and has just been told that he has to leave because a new person bought the home that has the rental unit that he lives in. His reality, and it is the truth because I've heard it from so many people across my riding, is there is nowhere else for him to go. There is no affordable unit for him. And when I hear that this government is giving money to private corporations that are charging rents that are 30 to 120% higher than the market rate, it just tells you this is not a project, a program that this government is taking seriously. It's not about making sure that people who are unhoused, who are struggling, who don't know how they're going to live from day to day are going to be able to have an affordable home to live in. So it's about priorities, and that's what this motion is about in this House. It's about saying that the people who work hard every day deserve to be treated with dignity. And I think about these challenges. I've talked to a lot of professionals who have lost their rental units simply because they've been sold from underneath them. And now they're living in trailers, hoping that trailer parks will not just stay open during the normal summer months and spring and fall months that they stay open, but the whole year just so that they have somewhere safe to live. And I also think about the many seniors who had the GIS clawed back to them. They are contacting our office, very grateful that they're seeing those dollars come back to them, but in a lot of cases, they've already lost their home. They've already lost where they live. And now, because the cost of living is going up so much, because the cost of rentals are going up so much, they have nowhere to live. Madam Speaker, just the other day I was at Quenza Place, which is a place in Campbell River that provides showers and laundry facilities for those who are unhoused. When I was there, I met a lot of folks that are just struggling to get by, that are really challenged for multiple reasons. And one of the things that was most startling to me was the fact that inside that space, they have a project that they're working on. They're building wooden structures that people would be able to pull either on their own or with a bike that they can live in, because there's nowhere else for them to live. And I really respect solutions, Madam Speaker. I really respect when communities come together, they look at some of these real issues and they create solutions. But it just tells me that we are still not seeing a federal government that sees the right to housing as a basic human right. That they're saying it's okay for you to scrounge around to make a few $1,000s so that you can build a wooden box to live in so that you don't get cold in a rainstorm. So I appreciate what Quenza Place is doing. I really appreciate the warmth that they bring and how they help people be able to wash their laundry. But I want the bar of dignity in this country to be higher. That is what this motion is about. I also had some conversation with some food banks in my riding that are just talking about the huge amount of numbers that are coming through and continue to come through, and how people who've never had to use the food bank before, working people, working hard every day, making decent incomes, are having to come to the food banks because they cannot afford not to. Again, why is this government continuing to allow the bar of dignity for Canadians to go so far down? Madam Speaker, what I find the most frustrating is often in these big moments of discussion about how to make the world a better place, I see people fighting one another. People mad because this group of people has this right and that group of people has this right. And I think it's important for all of us as Canadians to come together and say, what is the real issue here? And the real issue here is that wealth is being held by a very few in this country. And every year we're seeing their piece of the pie grow larger and everybody else's grow smaller. So I really encourage Canadians, stop fighting about your small piece of the pie and that person's small piece of the pie and that person's small piece of the pie. Let's start talking about what really needs to happen, which is leadership from the federal government to say, if you're going to make enormous profits, you need to step up and you need to pay your fair share. Because I can tell you, the people in my riding, whether they work in the fishing industry, whether they work in the logging industry, whether they work in education, whether they work in tourism, they are paying their fair share every single day. They care about their communities every single day. But there are those in this country who are not paying their fair share. So I just want to let my constituents know that in 2021, Scotiabank had a net profit of over $10 billion. They paid 4.3 of those billions of dollars in dividends to their shareholders. And what did they do at the same time? They increased their customers' banking fees. Then we saw BMO that made a net profit of $7.7 billion, paid out over $2.7 billion in dividends while increasing the fees to their customers' bank accounts. We look at Loblaws, owned by the very wealthy Weston family, that made a net profit of $1.9 billion. They paid $484 million in dividends to their shareholders, however refused to increase the wages of their workers to supplement those frontline workers who worked on the front line during this pandemic, who continue to work on the front line during this pandemic, and are at higher risk of contracting COVID-19. So really today we're here to talk about fairness, to take up that space and say, let's make this country a little fairer. Let's look at this motion. It really directs the Liberals to fulfill their campaign promise. Perhaps a bit of a new thing for them, but something I'm really hopeful that they will follow through with. They said that they would implement a 3% surtax on banks and insurance companies with net profits over $1 billion. We also want to see it extended to oil companies and large grocery chains with net profits over $1 billion. Because it's time. It's time for a government in this country to finally stand up and stop protecting excess corporate profits and start saying the bar of dignity in this country needs to be higher. We should not have seniors at the bottom groveling for the things that they need when they built this country. We should not be asking families to put groceries back on the shelves because they can't afford them. So hopefully we'll see some action. Thank you, Madam Speaker.